kindergartners. Welcome back to chapter 3 of The Wizard of Oz. Today we're going to recap what we read in the last chapter, and then I'm going to show you a couple of other things from this chapter that I find so amazing and fascinating and wonderful. In our last chapter, chapter 2, you'll remember that Dorothy's house landed in the fabulous imaginary country of Oz. So we heard her talking to the witch and the good witch, and the good witch asked her if she was from a civilized country, and Dorothy said yes, she is from a civilized country because she's from Kansas, and Kansas is a real place in America. But then the witch goes on to say, oh, well, that's why. Now you're not in a civilized country. And in Oz, there are 4 witches. And they live in the north and the south and the east and the west. And on the map that you have, it's the same one right here. And I think the thing that you really see when you look at the map is every land is a different color. So the north is purple and the east is actually blue. Even though it looks turquoise-ish, it's supposed to be blue. Down here, the south is red and the west is yellow. And we'll hear more about that in the book. In the movie, we don't hear about that as much. So that's pretty interesting. And then this whole book takes place because Dorothy needs to go and see the wizard. And the Wizard of Oz lives right in the middle of the land of Oz in the Emerald City. And the way to get there is by using the road of yellow brick, also called the Yellow Brick Road. So I wanted to show you 2 different pictures. The first is from the book, and this is what it looks like. And you'll see these are the 4 main famous characters: Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodsman, and the Lion. And you also see Toto, and we love Toto. Toto is a wonderful character, but he's not a main character, as you'll see. He is Dorothy's little dog, and he stays with Dorothy the whole time, but he's not a main character in this story. So this is an illustration from the book. Okay, now the reason I'm showing this to you is because when Hollywood decided to make it into a movie, they couldn't obviously make the characters all look exactly this way because this is somebody's imagination. So Hollywood had to try to turn real humans, actresses and actors, into these characters. And this is the picture from the movie. So there are definitely some similarities. First of all, there's a road of yellow brick in both, right? And then the characters are the same. Here's Dorothy, here's the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodsman, and the Lion. Now we also learned that when Dorothy dropped that house, it landed on the Wicked Witch of the East. And what we learned in the last chapter was that she had on silver shoes. So when you look at this picture from the book, you'll see that Dorothy's shoes are silver. But then I told you in the last chapter that when they went to make the movie, silver shoes didn't look good. So they switched it. And you'll see that in the movie, Dorothy has the ruby red slippers, which would become famous. So if you ask grown-ups, most grown-ups will tell you that Dorothy's slippers were ruby red. You now know that Dorothy's slippers in the book, the real story, were actually silver. So today is exciting because we get to start on chapter 3, and it's called How Dorothy Saved the Scarecrow. And it's when we get to meet our very first main character other than Dorothy. And you'll see here I have some puppets. These are my Wizard of Oz puppets. Here is Dorothy. And she obviously is Dorothy from the movie. You can tell by her ruby red slippers. And today we are going to meet the Scarecrow. And this actually happens to be the Scarecrow from the movie as well. You'll meet the Scarecrow from the book today, and you'll see that there are definitely some differences. So these are my dolls that sit up here with Toto while we read. So let's get started. How Dorothy Saved the Scarecrow. I feel like I have to sneeze. Phew, excuse me. When Dorothy was left alone, she began to feel hungry. So she went to the cupboard and cut herself some bread, which she spread with butter. She gave some to Toto, and taking a pail from the shelf, she carried it down to the little brook and filled it with clear, sparkling water. Toto ran over to the trees and began to bark at the birds sitting there. Dorothy went to get him and saw such delicious fruit hanging from the branches that she gathered some of it, finding it to be just what she wanted to help out her breakfast. That reminds me of in My Father's Dragon, how Elmer found the tangerine trees and he picked fruit also. They did something very similar. Then she went back into her house, and having helped herself and Toto to a good drink of the cool, clear water, she set about ready for the journey to the City of Emeralds. Dorothy had only one other dress, but that happened to be clean and was hanging on a peg beside her bed. It was gingham with checks of white and blue, and although the blue had faded with many washings, it was still a pretty frock. The girl washed herself carefully, dressed herself in the clean dress, and tied her pink sunbonnet on her head. She took a little basket and filled it with bread from the cupboard, laying a white cloth over the top. Then she looked down at her feet, and she noticed how old and worn her old black shoes were. "Well, these will surely never do for a long journey, Toto," she said. And Toto looked up into her face with his little black eyes and wagged his tail to show he knew what she meant. At that moment, Dorothy saw lying on the table the silver shoes that had belonged to the Witch of the East. "I wonder if they will fit me," she asked Toto. "They would be just the thing to take a long walk in, for they wouldn't wear out." She took off her old leather shoes and tried on the silver ones, which fit her as well as if they had been made for her. They're magic. Finally, she picked up her basket. "Come along, Toto," she said. "We will go to the Emerald City and ask the great Oz how to get back to Kansas again." She closed the door, locked it, and put the key carefully in the pocket of her dress. And so, with Toto trotting along soberly behind her, she started on her journey. There were several roads nearby, but it did not take her long to find the one that was paved with yellow brick. Within a short time, she was walking briskly towards the Emerald City, her silver shoes tinkling merrily on the hard yellow brick road. The sun shone bright and the birds sang sweetly, and Dorothy did not feel nearly as bad as you might think a little girl would, who had been suddenly whisked away from her own country and set down in the middle of a strange land. She was surprised as she walked along to see how pretty the country was about her. There were neat fences at the sides of the roads, all painted a dainty blue color. And beyond them were fields of grain and vegetables in abundance. Evidently, these Munchkins were good farmers and able to raise large crops. Once in a while, she would pass a house, and the people would come out to look at her, and they would bow low as she went by, for everyone knew she had been the one to destroy the wicked witch and set all the Munchkins free from bondage. The houses of the Munchkins were odd-looking dwellings, for each one was round with a big dome for a roof, and all of them were painted blue, for in this country of the East, blue was the favorite color. So that's this area of our map. And you can see all their houses. And really, on this map, they should have all painted them blue, right? But they're not on the map. Toward evening, when Dorothy was tired with her long walk and began to wonder where she would pass the night, she came to a house that was rather larger than the rest. On the green lawn before it, many men and women were dancing. 5 little fiddlers played as loudly as possible, and the people were laughing and singing with a big table nearby that was loaded with delicious fruits and nuts, pies and cakes, and many other good things to eat. So as she's walking by, this is what she sees. It's this great big party. Notice that they're all dressed in blue, and the house is blue because this is the land of the Munchkins. And in the land of the East, in the land of the Munchkins, everything is blue. And they're all celebrating. The people greeted Dorothy kindly and invited her to supper and to pass the night with them, for this was one of the homes of the richest Munchkins in the land, and his friends were all gathered to celebrate their freedom from the Wicked Witch. Dorothy ate a hearty supper and was waited upon by the rich Munchkin himself, whose name happened to be Boq. Then she sat down upon a settee and watched all the Munchkins dance. When Boq saw her silver shoes, he said, "Oh, you must be a great sorceress." "Well, no. Why?" asked Dorothy. "Well, because you wear the silver shoes, and you have killed the Wicked Witch, and you have white in your frock, and only witches and sorceresses wear white." "Oh, well, actually, my dress is blue and white checked," said Dorothy, smoothing out the wrinkles in it. "Well, it is kind of you to wear that," said Boq. "Blue is the color of the Munchkins, and white is the witch color, so we know that you are a friendly witch." So they really think that Dorothy is a witch just because her house landed on the Wicked Witch. And now they think that because she has white in her dress, she's supposed to be a sorceress or a good witch. All of that, of course, is not true. Dorothy comes from Kansas. She has no idea what's going on. And the reason she's wearing her blue and white dress was because it was the only one she had clean. Dorothy did not know what to say to this, for all the people in Munchkinland seemed to think her a witch. And she knew very well she was just an ordinary little girl who had come by chance from a cyclone to this strange land. When she had tired of watching the dancing, Boq led her into the house, where he gave her a pretty room with a pretty bed in it. The sheets, of course, were made of blue, and Dorothy slept soundly in them until morning, with Toto curled up on the blue rug beside her. She ate a very hearty breakfast in the morning and watched a wee Munchkin baby who played with Toto and pulled his tail and laughed in a way that greatly amused Dorothy. Toto was a very fine curiosity to all the Munchkins, for they had never seen a dog before. "How far is it to the Emerald City?" Dorothy asked. "Oh, I do not know," answered Boq gravely. "I've never been there. It's better for people to keep away from Oz, unless they have business with him. But it's a long way to the Emerald City, and it will take you many days. The country here is rich and pleasant, but you must pass through rough and dangerous places before you reach the end of your journey." This started to worry Dorothy a little. But she knew that only the great Oz could help her get back to Kansas again. So she bravely resolved not to turn back. She bade her new friends goodbye and again started along the road of yellow brick. When she had gone several miles, she thought she would stop to rest, and so she climbed to the top of the fence beside the road and sat down. There was a great cornfield beyond the fence, and not far away she saw a scarecrow, placed high on a pole to keep the birds away from the ripe corn. Dorothy leaned her chin upon her hand and gazed thoughtfully at the scarecrow. Its head was a small sack stuffed with straw, with eyes, a nose, and a mouth painted on it to represent a face. An old pointed blue hat, which had belonged to some munchkin, was perched on his head, and the rest of the figure was dressed in a blue suit of clothes, worn and faded, which had also been stuffed with straw. On his feet were some old boots that had blue tops, such as every munchkin man wore in this country. And the figure was raised above the stalks of corn by means of a pole stuck right up his back. While Dorothy was looking earnestly into his strange, painted face of the scarecrow, she was surprised to see one of his eyes slowly wink at her. So here he is. And pay close attention to him, because this is what he looks like in the imagination of the book. So here he's in all blue. And of course, the reason he's dressed in all blue is because he's from Munchkin Land. And that's the land that's blue in the story. You'll also see that his face was painted on, because a real scarecrow would have a painted on face, right? So after we finish reading the chapter, we're going to look at some pictures of what the scarecrow looked like in the movie. So all of a sudden, here she is staring at the scarecrow in a field, and she sees one of his eyes wink. That would be a little bit scary. She thought she must have been mistaken at first, for none of the scarecrows in Kansas ever wink. But presently, the figure nodded its head to her in a friendly way. She climbed down from the fence and walked up to it, while Toto ran around the pole and barked. "Good day," said the scarecrow in a rather husky voice. Did you speak?" asked Dorothy in wonder. "Well, certainly," answered the scarecrow. "How do you do?" "Oh, well, I'm pretty well, thank you," replied Dorothy politely. "Well, how do you do?" she asked. "Oh, I'm not feeling well," said the scarecrow with a smile. "It's very tedious being perched up here night and day to scare away crows." "Well, can't you get down?" asked Dorothy. "No, there's a pole stuck up my back. If you'll please take away the pole, I shall be greatly obliged to you." Dorothy reached up both arms and lifted the figure off the pole. For being stuffed with straw, he was quite light. "Oh, thank you very much," said the scarecrow, when he had been set down on the ground. "I feel like a new man." Dorothy was puzzled at this, for it sounded strange to hear a stuffed man speak, and to see him bow and walk alongside of her. "Who are you?" asked the scarecrow when he had stretched himself and yawned. "And where are you going?" "Well, my name is Dorothy," said the girl, "and I'm going to the Emerald City to ask the Great Oz to send me back to Kansas." "Oh, where is the Emerald City?" he inquired. "Oh, and who is Oz?" "Well, don't you know?" responded Dorothy in surprise. "No, I don't know anything. You see, I am stuffed, so I have no brains at all," he answered sadly. "Oh," said Dorothy. "Well, I'm awfully sorry for you." "Do you think," the scarecrow asked, "if I go to the Emerald City with you, that the Great Oz would give me some brains?" "Well, I cannot tell," she returned, "but you may come with me if you like. If Oz will not give you any brains, you'll be no worse off than you are now." "Well, that is true," said the scarecrow. "You see," he continued, "I don't mind my legs and arms and body being stuffed, because I can't get hurt. And if anyone steps on my toes or sticks a pin into me, well, it doesn't matter, for I can't feel it. but I do not want people to call me a fool. And if my head stays stuffed with straw instead of brains, as yours is, how am I ever to know or learn anything? Well, I understand how you feel, said the little girl, who was truly sorry for him. If you will come with me, I'll ask Oz to do all he can for you. Oh, thank you, the Scarecrow answered gratefully. They walked back down to the road. Dorothy helped him over the fence, and they started along the path of yellow brick towards the Emerald City. Toto did not like this addition to the party at first. He smelled the stuffed man, as he suspected there might be a nest of rats in his straw, and he often growled in an unfriendly way at the Scarecrow. Oh, don't mind Toto, said Dorothy to her new friend. He never bites. Oh, I'm not afraid, replied the Scarecrow. He can't hurt the straw. Now do let me carry that basket for you. I shall not mind, for I can't get tired. I'll tell you a secret, the Scarecrow continued as he walked along. There's only one thing in the world I'm afraid of. Oh, said Dorothy, and what's that? Is it the Munchkin farmer who made you? No, said the Scarecrow. It's a lighted match. Because a match could set his straw on fire, right? So here is a picture of Dorothy and the Scarecrow and Toto. And we just learned now that the Scarecrow wants to go to Oz to ask for brains. So Dorothy's going to Oz to ask to go back to Kansas. The Scarecrow wants now to go to Oz to ask for brains. He feels like brains are truly important. So a couple of things to show you. First of all, here is a picture from the storybook. And you see he's all in blue in this picture. She's in her blue and white dress, and in the book, she wears a bonnet. And you can see how long that road of yellow brick is. Now, let's look at my picture book and see if those pictures match. Usually they do. Let's see. Here is Dorothy leaving with her silver slippers on. She decided they would be better to walk in. Here, I love this picture because you really get to see Munchkin Land. Do you see it? Look at all those blue houses. And here she is waving goodbye to the Munchkins as she's on the road to Yellow Brick off to the Emerald City. And here is where she finds the Scarecrow stuck up on the pole. And here's the picture I just showed you, where he decides to be her companion. So you're going to hear that word a lot. You're going to hear companion or comrade. And what companion and comrade mean are friend. So he has decided that he wants to be Dorothy's friend. Now, in the movie, the Scarecrow is definitely a favorite character. He's clumsy. He falls a lot. He's stuffed with straw. His straw falls out of his body all the time. And he sings. So here is a picture of him from the movie. And you'll see that his face couldn't be painted on because he's a real actor. So he has a lot of makeup on to make him look like a scarecrow. And here's Dorothy helping him out of the cornfield. There's Toto in his lap. And here's another picture of his amazing costume that he got to use in the movie. So that is one of our first characters. So there's some things that we should put up on our word wall. If I scoot over, we right now have Dorothy and Kansas and Toto and the Cyclone and the Munchkins. But we're going to switch these out and we're going to add some new things. We are going to add the Scarecrow And we are going to add brain, because that's what he's asking Dorothy for. And I put these in blue, or not Dorothy for, I'm sorry, the Wizard of Oz. I put these all in blue because the Scarecrow wears blue, because he's from Munchkinland, and Dorothy's actually wearing a blue dress too, which is why I did that. And here are some other words we might want to know. They're headed to the Emerald City, which I put in green. And I don't know if you've ever seen an emerald before. You might want to look it up. It sort of looks like a green diamond. It's as sparkly as a diamond, but it's green. And the way they are going there is on the road of yellow brick. And I believe I'm going to have to get some tape because I don't believe that this word will fit in there. So the yellow brick road is another word that you might want to add to your list of words. We also want to show you on the back of this because you have some of these words already. I'm also going to put up silver shoes, and I'll show you why in a minute. So on the back of your map, you have your very own word wall so that you can write your own stories about the Wizard of Oz or draw your own pictures and send them in to me. Here's Dorothy and Toto. You'll see on your word wall, they call it a tornado. We called it in the book a cyclone. Cyclone and tornado mean the same thing. So either one of those words works. Now, we've met the Scarecrow. And the other things that we've heard of are the Yellow Brick Road and the Emerald City. You will see, though, that it says on your word wall, Ruby Slippers. And that's because the movie is so famous. But you also know that actually they're called silver shoes. So if we were in the classroom, your word wall would be humongous because I hang all of these words up so that you can write and draw and create all sorts of Wizard of Oz pictures. But since you're at home, I had to send home a smaller one. But you can always make a journal of the story of the Wizard of Oz or draw pictures as you meet different characters. At the end of the book, we will be voting on which character you liked the best. So you've met two now, two of the main characters. You've met Dorothy and you've met the Scarecrow. And we'll have to see as the story progresses which one you still like the best. All right? So let's see. That's it for today. Tune back in for the next chapter next time. And it's called Chapter 4, The Road Through the Forest. All right? So thank you, kindergartners. I love you to pieces. Mwah. And there is no place like home.